Thank you, sir. Thanks, Eugene. Thanks, Mark. All right. Well, you know, this talk has been billed as a conversation between a couple of veterans. I know that that's the case, but how far back do you guys go? Like, where did this start for you guys?
For me, started back in 1977. I was a kid out of UC Berkeley and got a job at this crazy-ass company called Atari, doing electronic pinball games. You know, it's like, this was my dream job, and I haven't looked back. You know, it's been a cool journey.
Nice. Mark?
So you were doing arcade games since '79, right?
Well, that was video.
Video, yeah. Which is pretty amazing. So maybe 78, 79, starting to code them, because we didn't even have programmers until 76 or so, right? The early games were done with pure hardware, like Breakout, the Balls Motion, Collision. You didn't need software or CPU for that. So I started at Atari Arcade Division in January of '82. So to put that in perspective, 3 months after the release of Centipede.
Of Centipede.
Yeah, so a few years ago.
Right. Yeah. So a crazy time. I mean, were the games easy to design at that stage?
I mean, it was a total Stone Age. You know, I mean, you think like Unity, Schmunity. You know, I mean, we had this shit called hardware. You know, I mean, you never knew if it was going to be working one day, the next. You know, the tools. We ended up having to write our own editors and assemblers, and completely primitive. The floppy disks. I mean, which kind of flopped a little too much, and your program didn't exist anymore. So it was just a challenge just to get stuff to run.
I mean, you'd sit down every time though, and you'd make a game, and it would go out, and it would be a hit, right?
You know. I mean, that was the idea. I mean,
Defender was Williams' biggest hit and your first video game, right?
Yeah. I mean,
so
it was kind of like I mean, it's a lot like
you're bitching about the technology, but not that hard for you, right? You 3 in a row, all huge. No? At Atari, freshman is very different.
Certainly the hit ratio.
We weren't doing that well. Atari, the freshman class in 1982, there was about 8 programmers/designers. And out of the 8 of us, only 1 of us succeeded in making a first title that was saleable, even 1 unit. And that was not me, by the way. That was Franz Lanzinger with Crystal Castles. I mean, for us, it was a brutal business. For you and Ed Log and a couple guys, it's just kind of go into work, you know, right ahead.
you know, I think it was. I mean, it's kind of like it's very similar to kind of the indie times today. You know, where you get
go into work and right ahead. 3 or
4 guys, you know, or a couple of chicks out of school. You know, a small
3
team.
or 4 people on a team.
You know, yeah, and. Nobody knows shit about games. I mean, when I did Defender, I had never done a video game. I mean, we didn't know anything about video games.
Well, Williams had never made a video game.
Yeah, Williams had never.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, but you're just like you're pure passion. You know, just like so many indie teams. Yeah, you're just pure passion. You're gonna go out and conquer the world.
If I remember properly, they brought you in to make the first video game.
Yeah.
It's a smash hit, right? And then their thought is, wow, Eugene's great. No, their thought is, hey, we need to get 10 more guys.
Well, yeah, it was like if we had 1 mucky at a typewriter.
Yeah.
You know, and we hire this, you know, this hippie with a typewriter. We'll get 100 more of these guys, and we'll monetize. I mean.
Well, so the hardware. I mean, you're 48K or something. What was the size?
48 kilobytes. That, of course, included the screen memory, which is about 38 of that, and you had to kind of watch out because it was just like a unified memory map system, and if your collision detection for your laser was off a little bit, you would shoot it into your stack, you know, or your program would just be exploded into pixels, and not with good results.
How long did Defender take, and how long did Marble Madness take to develop?
Defender was, I guess, about 9 months. That included designing the hardware.
For 10K of software, it took you 9 months.
I think it was like 14 or something.
Right,
maybe,
okay, 14K.
Maybe 16K. I mean, this is assembly code. I mean, that was like 10,000 lines of code, you know. So I mean, there was a lot of code.
Complexity.
I mean,
Marble Madness was also about 9 months.
About 9 months?
About 9 months, yeah.
Okay. That's great.
I think we had 64K, maybe. By then, I mean, it was years later, right? So.
Right, right. So well, let's now compare that past to the present. You know, when you guys were developing those games, I mean, the video game business was brand new within 10 years or so of its genesis. You know, how do you see things panning out now? I know that Mark, you've gone on record to say that you think we're in a renaissance of gaming. Why do you think that?
Well, I mean, I look around my part of the world, which is console games, and we've got this amazing balance right now. So we've got Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed and the like on the one side, and we've got the smaller titles like Resogun, Don't Starve, and the like on the other side. And what amazes me is that our audience has grown so sophisticated that there were 1 million downloads of Don't Starve. And some of these smaller titles I recognize. I mean, Resogun is Defender for the 21st century. If you haven't played it, you need to play it. I'm completely addicted to it right now. But something like Don't Starve, it is not an easy game to play. It's all about delayed gratification. You get in there, you don't know the rule set, you have to take an intellectual approach, you're in this wilderness, you have to figure out what to do. And you need to get in very deep before even many of the challenges emerge. And that could be a success right now for PlayStation 4 speaks to this, I think, never-before seen maturity of the audience itself.
Yeah, so I actually agree with you that when I look back at the early days of the arcades, every game seemed to be innovative and had a new mechanic, was creative. And then we went through this long period of, seems like a lot of Me Too products. But now I look at the landscape and it seems like there's innovation that's happening every day. A lot of interesting things happening. So I agree there's a renaissance. What's your take on it?
You know, I mean, hats off to Apple and Steve Jobs. I mean, the creation of the application software to have the standardized platform that anyone in the world can develop, a game, whatever. I think it's awesome. And of course, I'm talking about the Apple II. And I mean, that totally blew the thing wide open. And the original App Store was a Ziploc bag, And I mean, I guess they're still doing it in Colorado,
Right.
But the and the cool thing was you didn't have to pay 30% to anybody.
Right.
It really, I guess the retailer.
We had a retailer involved.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about selling bits is that you can have an exponential success because you don't need to manufacture anything. And those guys, I'm sure it looked like a lot of fun duplicating the discs and carrying around the baggies to the store. But it's a lot easier these days now.
Well, I guess in some ways, yeah. I mean, if there's, 1 million apps out there, and the, what revenue was 10 billion or something, of which the top 1% took 90% of that. And so the average app made, I think, $1,000 or something. So I mean, it's cool being an indie guy,
A lot of innovation, but maybe not a lot of revenue.
But I mean, it is a cool world out there. So I don't know. I think the developers back in the early '80s, I mean, it seems like we had a better chance.
Talk about the monetization strategies of CoinOp. It seems like, I mean, obviously they were 25 cents. They began to innovate with the continue button.
Yeah, that's. I mean,
how does that compare to?
That is a tough business.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we were in the ninth circle of monetization hell. So 25 cents a play. The machine costs $2,500. That's 10,000 plays for it to break even. Except there's rent and salaries, and the machines break down. And so the operator, I mean, we didn't put those machines out there. The operator who bought them needed to see 20 or 30,000 plays on that machine to be comfortable about buying it, which meant we had to design games which were satisfying even at a length of 2 minutes and 30 seconds. And we'd chuckle. We'd do a lot of testing, and we'd see our buddy made a game, and like his average play was 4 minutes, and that loser, that game is never going to sell. I mean, the finances were that delicate back in the day.
Totally. I mean, and that was one of the beauties of Defender. We killed you off in 37 seconds.
Well,
You know?
Robotron, Robotron even better, right?
Yeah, I mean, that was monetization, you know, and you know, now it's like, what? You get 5 or 10 cents a day out of a guy? I mean, we got 25 cents every 37 seconds.
You know, if you do the math, those games were probably the most expensive games ever made for the player to play. 25 cents for 2.5 minutes means $10 an hour in 1980 dollars.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is about $25 an hour today. And you know, the expectation today is that gaming is either, you know, for a console game, you get your $60 game that you can play it for many hours, or even that your game is nearly free.
Yeah.
I do have to point out one thing too on Defender. I look at it now, and I think it ushered in a whole new era of players. I think it introduced the hardcore player to the arcade. Things were simple, largely in the arcade, and then Defender came out and just smacked you in the face. I mean, a joystick and 5 buttons and scrolling, and I mean, it was if you weren't a hardcore player, you know, you walked away. But the hardcore guys, they put their teeth back in, they stood back up, and you know, continued. So that's the first time I recognized there was 2 different types of players in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, I've always been a proponent of the iterative design methodology, you know, and when we were doing Defender, it was like, add another button until the thing got fun, you know, and you know, it is wild, but you know, now today I look at like an Xbox controller or you know, the PS4 controller, and there's like, you know, 4,000 different.
It's only,
you know,
16.
But okay, you know, elbow buttons and you know, oh my God, it's pretty good.
So now let's leave this from the outside, I think tonight when you're getting your Pioneer Award, I'm talking about you being fearless. But yeah, you know, how quickly can we kill the player, or how hard can we make the game? Things like Robotron, or you know, just how far we can take the concept. You had in the mid '80s enemies who would shoot syringes at you, right? You're picking up drugs and selling them for cash in the arcades. A Eugene Jarvis creation, right?
Yeah, well, you know,
Narc.
I mean, the thing was, we were creating entire genres.
Every time.
You know,
right?
I mean, it was like you know, say, wow, what am I going to do for my next game? And it's like, you know, hey, let's do football. You know, like, oh yeah, you know, they did that one with X's and O's.
Right.
You know, so like,
so it's been done.
Football's
Don't do
over.
it again.
Right.
Yeah.
Football's over. Right.
But basketball, they haven't done that yet.
Right.
You know, let's do basketball. You know, and so like it was just these virgin frontiers of games.
Well, so can developers today make the kinds of games, you know, they want to make? Is it different? In the old days, you're saying you could, you know, the whole world was an option unless a game had been done in the category, but nothing had been done. How does it compare to today?
I mean, I don't know what it was like at Williams, but Atari, you know, it looked like there was one guy making the game. We had smaller teams. We had like the programmer/designer. That was the typical job. And then maybe you got 3 days of help on the artwork towards the end of your project. We had one artist for 15 programmer designers. But you know, the programming, the software was just a tiny part of it because we had to put those boxes in the arcade. And the hardware team was there. That was all custom for every game. Custom power supply, custom display, right? Those XY games, that wasn't a normal monitor. Even the wiring inside the cabinets was custom. So you add it all up, and sure, one programmer is designing it, but it is a $1 million project. Consequently, I went back and I found the Marble Madness design document, and on the front page, there's approvals written from 4 executives all the way up to the president of the company that, yes, I can sit down in my little cubicle and write this game.
They were checking your code?
They weren't checking the code. I'm just saying, you know, it might look a little bit like indie development, but the fact is the financial commitment to make an arcade game was so huge. No, I mean, we were not in any way, or at least at Atari, independent creators of the titles. We had to go through a brutal paper-based design process.
That was not the case at Williams Electronics.
No, you guys were screwed, man. You know, it was. I mean, it was you know, just get 100 programmers and 100 typewriters and see what comes out. You know, and you know.
Is it the teams were smaller?
Yeah.
Is it really similar to indie developers today? I mean, is it kind of a similar mindset?
I think it's, the passion, the teams. I mean, now you have things called artists, which is kind of cool, I mean, doing little things, colored pencils on graph papers, designing, Robotron characters.
You did all the art.
It was, I apologize for the programmer art. But, we have artists. I mean, the specialties. We got sound guys, artists, programmers. I mean, these things called producers, which we could do without, but I mean, it was very similar, I think, to the indie teams.
Mark, you've said that you think things are pretty good right now. I mean, you're pretty happy, obviously. PS4, you've been working on that for the last 5 or 6 years. Great success. But when you look back at the last 30 years, do you ever want to go back?
Well, I mean, I like the way the business is right now. I mean, Trip was talking yesterday about games soon becoming a $100 billion business, and it's nice to see that kind of growth and universal acceptance. If I look back, I do miss the simpler times. I mean, we understood the business models and a bit about how to create the games back in 1982. Arcade games were selling them by the quarter, and then the PC games, you pretty much understood you'd sell that at high margin. But back then you'd have some piracy issues, and then the cartridge game is very expensive to manufacture. But very well-known 3 business models. And if you made a game, you would have perhaps 2 competitors in your chosen genre maximum that you were going up against with that title. And so naively, your success ratio is 1 in 3. It's probably 1 in 2 because you could work harder. Yeah. And I do miss both sort of understanding the industry and having that kind of just innate success rate. I mean, we're not literally up to 1 million apps yet, are we?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's
yes,
I think App Store, Apple is like 1.2 million.
Yeah,
I think
of which
Google's,
only 100,000 are games. Oh, probably.
Probably a few hundred thousand.
So it's a much tougher.
Yes, but it's like to me, it's like that dream of you get this small team. Maybe you have a couple kids out of college. Maybe a couple guys, a couple women out of the bowels of Microsoft or EA, or maybe some guys from Finland that were at Digital Chocolate, and you give your finger to the man, and you start your own thing, and bingo, man, Angry Birds, Heyday.
Would you want to go back? Would you want to go back though to that era?
No, man. I want to be selling $5,000 pink cows. Right. I mean, no, but I mean, these kids today. I mean, with the viral effects.
This is a man who's been trying to recreate Defender for the past 30 years.
I know, and it's a pain in the ass. It's a pain in the ass. I mean,
you're still making coin-op games.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, you got this viral network effects. You have this kind of winner-take-all.
But is that good or bad? Do you want to be in that? You want to be in that space?
When you're the winner, it's awesome, man. It's like I saw the guys up here yesterday. I mean, those were the 1%. Hanging out up here and talking. We didn't hear from the other 900,000 guys whose app had made like $100.
Right.
I mean, those guys weren't at the show here, but to me, that's the indie dream. I mean, you're conquering the world with 4 guys. And it's kind of like that's what we were able to do, not at Atari. I mean, you guys had all this bullshit bureaucracy and stuff, but we were having fun. I mean,
this is a tough question. Tough question, but I'd love to hear both your takes. Yeah. Over the last 40 years of video gaming, what has been the single most important innovation? Like what really has happened in 40 years that
I think
resonates?
A lot of people point to the App Store. I mean, I look at it, again, from a console perspective, and the big innovation for me was optical media. So, Ket Kutaragi got us on the CD, got us off cartridges. It's a huge accomplishment because when we were on cartridges, I went back and I did the math, and we could spend, for a game that would be $40 or $60, we could spend $1 making the software because the cartridges and the inventory cost and the risk was so high. And as soon as we were on on CDs, we weren't spending the, I don't know, $20 to $40 we spend today creating the software, but we were immediately spending at least 10. And so we were able to dramatically increase the size of the teams that was making the games. And you just saw this exponential growth.
Right.
And that
content.
money was coming from that choice to go to cheap optical media.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, you cut out the hardware guys.
Yeah, and you cut out all the delay of like 3 months making that disc, making that cartridge in Korea.
But still, I mean, you got Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo. I mean, these really wonderful people, but they do want their $10 for every disc. Maybe you got a special deal working for Sony.
You say, but if you look at it, it's quite common if you run the math to spend. It's quite common to spend $50 million making a game.
Yeah.
If we were still on cartridges, you would need to sell 50 million cartridges to justify that purchase.
No, right.
Since we are on optical media, a couple million sales is getting to that profit point.
Yeah, true. But see now, I mean, dude, you're so 90s. It's like, I mean, we got this. Okay, the Apple II was the most significant thing. But now we have App Store 2.0. Where, Steve Jobs, was no dummy, and he fixed the business model. He wasn't getting his piece of the Ziploc bags. So now you cut out the hardware guy, you cut out the stupid CD maker and whoever else is in the game.
I heard he was actually opposed to the App Store initially.
Yeah, I guess he was a control freak, And so, and I think he said, well, okay, if you're going to do it, I'm taking 30%.
Right. Right.
And like, okay,
Right.
But the electronic distribution, it's just thrown the thing wide open. And now, but now Apple has the business model. The most successful business model ever was created by the IRS. You take 30% of everything, and
they duplicated it.
Yeah,
right.
Steve Jobs says, okay, I'm gonna get 30% of it. Not like, like 3DO. I remember, Trip was here. 3DO was gonna be like $3 or something, $3 only. That was 3DO. Trip was a nice guy.
I should also say, kudos to Trip for trying to get that transition going with the 3DO multiplayer.
Absolutely. But 30% is that won the day.
That's Cashbox.
Yeah, that's Cashbox.
Right. Yeah.
But it's a tough tax now. As we have all these wonderful things, this huge virality and network effects and all this great stuff in the App Store.
I agree.
But we're paying 30% for the privilege of being one out of a million guys.
Right.
No marketing, no promotion.
So there's a couple of takes, a couple of takes on the biggest innovation. Let me poke at you a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So, you're still making arcade games.
Okay. Yeah.
Coin-operated games.
Right.
It seems to me that the arcade business model is dead.
Well, okay.
Mark, when's the last time you went into an arcade?
I have not been in an arcade in this century.
In this century.
Okay.
Right?
All right. Okay.
What's going on? Eugene Jarvis is still making coin-operated arcade games.
And I should say I got into games because I loved arcade games. And in fact, Defender was my all-time favorite game.
Yeah. I've been in the arcade for 37 years.
Mm-hmm.
You're right. At some point you run out of tokens. What I love about the arcade is, not only was it kind of the birthplace of really the video game, of the, you think about the 70s and Pong and Computer Space and those seminal titles, Breakout, Space Invaders, Pac-Man, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So it was the birthplace. It was this magical, cool venue, kind of an interface of the virtual, the real, and the physical, and a social space too, and so people dug that so much that it kind of created this huge supernova, which kind of blew out there and well, damn, I want to have an arcade in my house, So console gaming, you know?
Right, right.
Yeah, that was the aspiration.
Like,
yeah.
you know,
But there's a
duplicate
guy,
that.
Yeah.
and he has 4 games at his house.
Right,
Wow.
right,
Yeah.
right. And so that was like super cool. And then it was like, you know what? Work is really boring. I'd really like to play games at work, you know, while my boss isn't looking, you know, I have that little switch on there.
Right, right.
You know, and so like PC gaming, you know, like now I'm getting paid to play games. I mean, this is pretty cool,
Right.
you know, and you know, and you can do it at home at night,
Right.
and so like it blew out into PC gaming, you know, and then it blew out, you know, just this whole social mobile,
Sure.
you know, tsunami. That, you know, so it's like the
Actually,
arcade.
we hit cartridges first, right, with the Atari 2600 before we hit PCs.
Yeah, right. But you know, and so now you have, you know, everybody has an arcade in their pocket, you know, with this iPhone thing. So, dude, I mean, we won.
Sure.
We fucking won, man. High five, dude. It's like, you know, so I mean, it's totally cool, you know.
Let me dig a little deeper. So I joined Williams Electronics to come and work with you. So I'm aware of your kind of design sense and kind of what you've done.
Oh, and by the way, I should say 1985, I was trying to join Eugene's team. Never happened.
I know, we were.
Why is that, Eugene?
You know, I don't know.
Right.
You know, I don't
You
know.
told me no. You told him yes.
I don't know, happened. I think, you know, I think we had some problems monetizing that year, I think.
But so I kind of know your angle, but to kind of set it up, when I came in, started making Smash TV, first Boss Monster, Mutoid Man.
Right.
You came into my office, looked at you know, the explosions and the blood coming out, and you said, it needs 100x more blood, right? And then, you know, we went on from there, and I know when it was time to do NBA Jam, and you saw the first dunk on the screen, you said, you know, that guy should jump 5 times higher. And I'm sure, I know Ed Boon is over here in the audience, our colleague and friend, Mortal Kombat creator. I'm sure he would have a similar story about the first time you saw, you know, a finish move. More blood, you know, more over the top.
Decapitate, pull the spinal cord out. I mean,
Sure. So what is when you set off to design a game, what is your mindset? What are you thinking? What are you trying to accomplish?
Well, you know, it's a huge challenge because, you know, I mean, obviously even greater today because, you know, you're fighting for mind share. You're trying to get inside of people's heads. And obviously in the arcade era, we had this little screen. Now we even have a smaller screen. And so when you're dealing with like these little screens, it's like you have to, you know, totally go Hollywood. You know, you have to, whatever you think is cool, you know, multiply it by 10. You know, you have to blow this world up because you got these little teeny guys. You know, it's just not very interesting. You know, so you have to, you know, just completely over the top.
Sensory overload. When I think about you, it's like sensory overload.
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's you know, it's just you got to go overboard and gratuitous violence, I guess, was the phrase that I always loved. You know,
gratuitous violence, right? Nice.
But you know, you got to get people's attention because you know the enemy is boredom. You know, and
so I know that you know, we used to go into the arcades. We would test a game. We'd watch the consumers. How do consumers factor into, you know, the final design of a game, even then to now? Like, should consumers have a bigger role in designs?
You know, it's kind of like I think back in the day, it was more of the Steve Jobs philosophy, and it was more like people don't know what they want. Screw people, you know.
Well, but we got user testing for free, right?
Right.
Back in the arcade days, right? All you had to do was you put your box in the
right.
arcade, you just go out, you watch people play it.
right.
And you know, these days you kind of have to make an artificial environment, the testing facility in order to see how it's being received. So I mean, I think we really got a leg up on usability back in 70s, 80s.
Oh yeah, I mean, every arcade was a test game, and not only it was a test game, not a focus group thing, but it was a test game with real money. You know, so you had real money people. You didn't have people saying, "Oh, I would buy this game," or "I thought it was really cool."
I put a quarter in. I went back to the change machine.
Yeah, exactly. It's like you were testing actual consumer behavior, which I mean is a lot. It's very similar to you know, monetization today and the real-time monetization of you know, free-to-play games. I mean, it's real-time. you sit there, you watch, did the guy put a quarter in or not? Did he walk away? What happened? You know, so it was very immediate and allowed for iterative design.
Let me shift over now to consoles. You know, Mark, congratulations. PS4, killing it. You've spent the last, what, 5-6 years really focused on that platform, working on that design. Seems to me, though, that maybe it's still the last console generation of what we're seeing. Is that possible? That this is
2 months in right now, and you're asking where we're going to be in 6 or 8 years?
Right.
So, you know, I just think back, and it was 2 years ago, you'd see the analysts, my God, Sony Computer Entertainment, you know, it's a dinosaur. There's rumors they're coming out with a new console. Who would ever want that? And even after our February announcement event, it was split about 50-50 if you looked out, out there. The people who think about business, is there still a business here or not? And it was pretty clear by E3, of course, that the audience had spoken, and of course, a very healthy audience for console games. Going forward, it looks pretty solid. I mean, there are all these synergies that are coming into play. If you think of console game as strictly Call of Duty, you might wonder why a market exists.
The
What are you
budgets
talking
are
about,
high.
man?
Breadth,
It's a cool game, man.
it's a wonderful game. But there's a breadth of experience, and you're seeing, for example, now the sort of the cross-pollination that's happening.
Yeah, but what about the whole tablet platform? You know, what about Steambox, you know, PC, mobile platforms in general?
And you're seeing an influx, right? So the creativity that's driving that is also driving the smaller titles on console. And creating this very interesting balance where you have that very traditional 200-hour, even Skyrim single-player experience, and then on the other side, we'll probably have ridiculous fishing before too long if we haven't.
But aren't the developers, more focused on mobile and looking at tablet as?
So I mean, you look at the business has grown immensely, and sure, so smartphones. Over 1 billion people play smartphone games, and a couple 100 million people play console games. So if you think about this in terms of, market share, you can have questions like that. But if you look at the console business itself and the hundreds of millions of fans who enjoy playing that, it looks very solid today.
But dude, isn't all this? Crap,
oh, you're just making trouble.
No, dude, isn't all this shit just gonna get sucked into the cloud? I mean, let's get real here. I mean,
cloud gaming. I mean, how?
It's all getting sucked in the cloud.
Yeah.
I mean,
But cloud gaming means a lot of things. I mean, cloud gaming is a spectrum, right?
Yeah,
I mean, cloud gaming certainly can be playing a game on the cloud, but it can also be test playing, browsing what games you might to play with some cloud assistance, or it can be bringing that sort of instant response that the free-to-play world has now into console games, where the power of the cloud is being leveraged to modify the games themselves.
Well, Eugene, so you've gone on record as saying he's living in the 90s.
Okay.
Right
totally.
here on stage.
Totally.
So what, is tablet gaming, is consoles, where are we headed with consoles?
Well, I think, like I said earlier, arcade is where it's at, and
it's the future?
No, it's really, actually, it's a really, when I look at some of these business models of, if you're not in the 1%, you're in the 99%, it makes the arcade business look really good. The cool thing about the arcade space is, we have all these physical interfaces. We have motorcycles that you lean, and motion platforms, and
stuff you can't do at home.
Steering wheels, and God bless America, we still have the right to wield a plastic fake gun, and then some cool gun games, but I think this VR stuff, which I think we got some guys from Oculus coming in. That is gonna rock. I think that could be like a whole new renaissance in the arcade thing with VR spaces and So the arcade's where it's at.
Now I think you're living in the 90s. Right? I don't know about that. What's going to happen with all these old platforms? Like, it's funny. I see still 2,600 games being developed, and are these consoles going to stay forever?
Well, I mean, Ed Freeze with Halo for the 2600. I mean,
Right.
Who knows? I mean, it's crazy. That we have emulation. I mean, we got MAME, so we have every game ever created by mankind,
documented,
pirated. But,
right.
but it's cool. It's cool.
Yeah. Right.
So I think that like these legacy systems are now living on, and all that incredible creativity is still out there for.
Let's look at the future and the whole free-to-play model. Is free-to-play going to be the dominant format or not?
It's been amazingly fast how quickly that's picking up. I'm looking out right now, and we've got the billion-dollar franchises, if you want to count them, and we got free-to-play, Candy Crush Saga, and Clash of Clans, and Puzzle and Dragons, and then Minecraft as a very different thing as its billion-dollar franchise, and then maybe there's a couple or three on the console side. And who would have thought, going back 10 years, that would be the situation that we were in today?
Well, I mean, it all.
Apparently, Eugene would have thought.
It all goes back to the arcade thing. I mean, in the '80s. I mean, we were, with Defender, 25 cents every 37 seconds.
Made $1 billion. Defender made $1 billion.
I mean, we were monetizing like a mofo.
Right.
And then
actually, you weren't monetizing.
Right. Well, okay. Somebody else got the money.
Because those were the supply chain absorbed that complete income.
Well, that's why I'm still here. But that's why I'm still in the arcade. I'm trying to get my tokens back. But the thing is, the crash came. In like 80-45, and all of a sudden, arcades are closing, by the thousands. Income is down, and all of a sudden, it was weird. I remember, this whole virtual goods thing. I'm thinking about that, and I'm going, like in pinball, in the 50s, when the guy won the first free game and sold it to the guy behind him in line, I mean, that was a virtual good. I mean, this has been going on. It's like computer space, the first arcade video game, you could earn extra time in hyperspace. Defender, you got a smart bomb every 10,000 points. Pac-Man, you got an extra man. So it was like. But the thing was, the virtual goods were always skill-based. It was, it was like that was the moral purity of the arcade. It was like, we were not going to sacrifice that moral integrity for a cheap dollar. Okay, then the crash came. Arcades are closing by the millions, and all of a sudden it's like, you know what? We got to learn a new word. It's called monetization. And so then all the these continue games come up, the buy-in models.
50 cents. $1.
Super off-road. You can pay money to upgrade your truck and beat the other guy. Cyberball. You bought like a golden quarterback. Which kind of like the gold iPhone. It's pretty cool. So it was like the pressure of that crash created these crazy monetizations, and the whole idea of like these pure skill games blew out of the water, because you sacrifice your moral integrity for a job, and it's kind of like I remember the whole MMO thing, in the 90s and early thousands, and still going. There was that big thing like, oh, we can't sell anything, nobody can buy stuff, you've got to grind, that's the integrity of the product and all this stuff, and then. With this crush of millions of apps, all of a sudden it's like, we need to monetize.
Yeah.
It's like,
let people pay what they want to pay.
Right. We don't want to be the 99%. We want to monetize these whales. We want to sell purple cows for $5,000. And it's like, you're in Zynga. You guys invented that shit. It's like, it's like, I'm trying to figure out how this works. But you guys are monetizing purple cows. You're Bubble Safari.
With polka dots.
All this stuff, and hundreds of millions of users. $1 billion of revenue. You got guys playing like fake slot machines for real money. I don't get it. You bet real money to win fake coins. Who would have thought? But anyway.
But so free to play is here to stay.
Yeah, but I'm saying, like, but you guys are still losing money. So I mean, what's up? I mean, what's going on? I mean, you know, what is going on?
Let's talk about another part of the future. You know, you're a game design professor at DePaul University.
Okay.
You know, Mark, I'm sure
so you know all this stuff.
You know,
I'm sure you encounter this as well. It seems like every high school, every college is adding a program in game design, production, development. What's your advice for all these students? I mean, we're outsourcing a lot of jobs throughout the industry. You know, what's the future for these students?
I think the most important thing is going to be thinking through if you want to be part of a small team and have a major role and be creatively involved extensively, or if you want to be working on the Hollywood-style blockbusters where there are 200 people on the project. For every creative director, there are 5 people who only do lighting for the scenes. And you know, if that kind of craftsmanship appeals to you, that's definitely a career path. But if you want to be in there, elbow to elbow with the guys, talking game design, then that says go for the much smaller titles.
Mm-hmm. That's like feature film versus, you know, the high 8 little independent film.
Right.
I choice.
Think,
well, I mean, the film model is very director-based, so I don't know what advice I give in the world of film. But for games, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, anybody with an iPhone can take a movie, you know, can shoot a movie. We got the tools we have out there today, you know, that like this
Unity and,
you know, this Unity thing is, you know, I mean, you know, all this, you know, Python, Ruby on Rails, whatever all this crap is, you know, it's like, I mean, it's amazing, you know, it allows the creative freedom. You don't need hardware guys. You don't need, you know, all these guys that got in the way, you know, and so now you know really the creative freedom these kids are having. I mean, we're going to see. I hate to agree with it, but no, we will have there'll be a renaissance of amazing creativity. You know, it's funny. I remember we were doing Smash TV, and you mentioned the blood effect, you know, and there was a woman, Asian artist who was working on that blood effect, you know, and she came to me one day and she goes, you know, I mean, you know, I love my job and everything, but what I'd really want to do, and this was like in '87 or '88, and she goes, what I really want to do is make a game where I could grow plants. And I go, oh my God, that is
genius.
That is the stupidest. You know, that's like, you know, no way is that going to monetize in an arcade. I mean, that'd be like watching paint dry. You know, it's like,
right.
you know. But you know, here we are, Farmville. You know, it's like all of a sudden now this amazing creativity and plethora of inventive things.
What are the games going to look like in 2020? I mean, where are we headed with games? What are the future views? Right, so we know coin-op, right? Arcade coin-op.
Right, arcade.
2020.
No.
Coin-op's making a comeback.
No, we are. There's going to be a renaissance. But you know, I think, you know, obviously PS, 6 or 7, whatever that, you know. You know, I think, you know, that's a good question. No, I really think one of the, you know, cool thing is, you know, we are kind of moving to this virtual reality thing. You know, starting with our screens, and then, you know, eventually when we get the technology down, we, you know, get rid of the lag, you know, have some real resolution up here, retina displays and stuff. I mean, we could actually, I guess we could get sucked into the cloud ourselves. Yes. I mean, if you, but yeah, it's wide open.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
new interfaces. Like, I mean, we've gone from joysticks to, you know, touch screens and force feedback and,
the impact of the VR technologies could be pretty significant going forward in that kind of time frame. I mean, and you know, as we figure out what works for games in the cloud and what doesn't work.
Right.
Those are probably the big 2 And digital distribution, of course, even for large console titles, will continue to pick up, I think.
Yeah, certainly the distribution channel. Well, I just, I wanted to congratulate you on tonight's Pioneer Award, winning recipient, well-deserved. Mark, fantastic effort on the PS4. Congratulations.
Yeah, I just want to talk a little more about these kids, though.
Oh, yeah.
But, so it's like, I mean, we're running out of time? Okay, but I just want to close with something here. You have, I mean, it's a tough world with all this outsourcing and, underemployment. I mean, they've got, for the 99% that aren't on the Google bus, I mean, what do we do? It's like, maybe, you're underemployed, maybe your job has been Amazoned, and, it's like, it's like, it seems like you're the loser, but really you're not. Really, we're the, we the 99% are the winners. Because what that means is we just have more time to play some of the greatest games ever invented.
Right.
And on that note.
Right. Well, again, congratulations. Well deserved. Mark, thank you.